to introduce themselves.
Nick
Greg.
Tavis.
Greg,
Here.
Sarah,
Hi, Sarah Grimwood.
and Judy.
Judy Sombrecker.
Okay. Moving to the agenda, I don't think we have any minutes to approve tonight. So we have a couple of continuances, both notices of intent, one for Middlesex School and one for 43 Old Bedford Road. Do we have a motion for that?
I move to continue Shaw, 43 Old Bedford Road, DEP file number 1371504, and Middlesex School, 1400 Lowell Road, DEP file number 1371545, to the meeting of December 16th.
Thanks, Nick. Have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Judy,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Nick,
Aye.
and Greg?
Aye.
And I'm a yes as well. Thanks. All right, on to the director's update.
Very briefly, last night was the Community Preservation Committee's public hearing on the CPA applications that have been presented. There are 15 applications in front of the CPC for recommendation to town meeting, and we have 4, as you know. We've got the old rifle range, survey and design, Chamberlain Bridge, survey and permitting. We have the design of the bridge already completed, acquisition of the Emerson CR, and the Warner's Pond dredging. So those are, we had the public hearing last night. There is about $500,000 shortfall between what the available money is from CPC and what the project's total submitted value is. So some things, some things will be cut. And Judy is our representative, our liaison with the CPC, and may have additional information that you want to share on that. But I thought that, it was a good process, as it always is.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would share additionally is we are working through a worksheet for a proposal to town meeting. I think that might be posted in the meeting up on the website. Because town meeting has been pushed back and the warrant articles have been pushed back, we likely will continue our deliberations into January because we're looking for some additional information, but we are seeking to keep our momentum going overall for the process. So it's going to be a little bit longer than I think previous years that people have anticipated.
Thank you, Judy. Delia, anything else on your list?
I just wanted to remind you all that I sent you a link to the Metrowest Conservation Alliance. That group has got Dr. I can't pronounce his name correctly. I think it's Jegar. It's Gegear, and he is a professor of biology at UMass Dartmouth, and he has done a lot of work on pollinator species, bees, wasps, flies, etc. And he is going to be giving a workshop on Monday. And it's sort of, we're doing a lot of work with pollinator meadows around town. This is sort of the next step into finding what specific species are at risk and how we can, work to protect those. So if you need that link again, I can send that along. And then just the final thing that I wanted to share with you is this photograph of a healthy bobcat that the editor of the Concord Journal actually sent to me and said, "Is this the bobcat?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And it's from somewhere in Concord. I don't know where it is, but we have had reports of them from all corners of town. They are here, and they're shy, elusive creatures, obviously not of concern in terms of interactions with humans. They're more afraid of us than we are of them. But if you have small cats or dogs or small cats and any chickens, small livestock, those should be protected at night. Dogs and cats should be kept inside. So I just thought that was a picture that you might all
Yeah,
appreciate.
it's a great shot. I didn't know they were in town.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How big would you think that is?
But it's not very big. It's probably twice the size of a large house cat.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but so they're very distinguishable from, you see this rough around its
Mhm.
face. It's got these sort of, this bearded look to it. And sometimes you can see these little tufts, and you can't see in this photograph, but they obviously have a bobbed tail. And quite distinct. I mean, their paws, that's a distinguishing feature, but I always think it is that they're, quite heavy-footed pawed creatures. So,
Great shot.
That's
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
it's awesome.
Yeah, really is.
that's it for me.
Thank you. All right. So I guess we got a continuous tonight. Notice of intent, Westchester Company, Lot 2A, Cuca Road. So I guess we'll ask the applicant who will be presenting for the applicant this evening.
Good evening. My name is Dan Wells from Goddard Consulting. I'm here on behalf of Westchester Homes.
Hi, Dan.
Hello. So I was last before the commission on October 7th. And since that last hearing, there's been 2 supplemental submittals to the commission. The first was on November 5th, and the second was November 28th. So I'm happy to go through the specifics of those revised submittals. So do you have a preference, Mr. Chairman, as to how to proceed?
Yeah, I think if you walked us through both those submittals, brought us up to speed, and then we can take it from there.
Okay. All right, so why don't we start with the submittal from November 5th. So what was submitted? So there was some revisions were made to the plans. There was some additional soil testing that was performed in relation to the driveway. There was the infiltration system associated with the driveway was slightly shifted to reflect the soil testing location. The overall elevation of the house was raised a foot. There was a deck added above the proposed patio, and it's been commented how this is right up to the 50-foot, but this plan still I'll mention this now, everything is still fully intended to maintain outside of the 50-foot no build zone. That's clearly understood by the applicant. So there's rather than a patio, there's now a deck above that, but it's still the same footprint. There's pheno markers, which are added at multiple locations around the edge of the lawn. And so those will provide permanent demarcation of the no disturb zone. So in addition to the plans being changed, and there was a recent, after this hearing in October, a soil evaluator, Mark Arnold, evaluated the soil. And there's some tables provided in terms of what was observed during that soil evaluation. The stormwater report was updated to reflect this most recent soil evaluation. And finally, the invasive species management plan was revised, and now it incorporates the entire lot. And so it clarifies, that portions of the BVW and the buffer zone will be subject to this invasive species management plan. And so that was essentially all the components of the November 5th filing. So after that, we received comments from Delia in an email form, and also from the DPW staff. And so the second submittal on November 28th addresses those. And so I'm happy to go through those comments as well. There was if you prefer, I can just kind of briefly skim through the comments and the responses, or I'm happy to go through it, read it verbatim if that's preferable.
So I don't think you need to read them
Yeah.
verbatim, and thank you, Dan, for that. I think that, you know, the commission has the comments that we provided to you. And I think essentially most of those comments have not been addressed by the response, which, you know, as you know, we provide these comments to applicants as a courtesy so that you have a heads up as to what is going to be discussed. And so just if you want to go through these comments, I think maybe the commission will want to go through each of these and just let you know what the commission's feelings are about these comments.
Yeah, and Delia, just to clarify, and Dan, you mentioned November 28th. The supplemental I had was November 25th.
I'm sorry, 25th, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
just make sure I had the right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the first comment was regarding, you know, the plans still showing structures right up to the edge of the 50-foot no build zone. And, you know, as I mentioned previously, the applicant is fully understands the policy, and the plans clearly are designed, all eaves and overhangs are behind that, or, you know, not within that 50-foot zone. The applicant understands there's going to be an as-built needed in order to get a certificate of compliance. And if that as-built shows encroachment, then there's, you know, it'll have to be dealt with. So.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, Dan, but I'm going to, if you don't mind, just to, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear, but the comment was really more sort of suggesting, trying to recommend that this plan as it's currently proposed does not leave the homeowner with any option whatsoever to construct perhaps a more usable deck or patio or anything that's outside of the 50-foot no build zone. And the commission often, you know, after a developer gets a plan approved, you know, the homeowner who buys the parcel comes and says, well, I like my house, but I want a little bit of backyard, I want a patio, I want a deck, I want, you know, and that deck is barely usable. So we're really more geared towards trying to just see if the scope of the, you know, does the driveway really need to, you know, do what it does like that? Is that necessary? And the shape of the house, does it have, I mean, it's really looking to see if there's other design elements that could be reviewed that would allow a future homeowner the ability to have some wiggle room to keep any future structure outside of the 50.
Well, yeah, I mean, the applicant has certainly reviewed this, you know, multiple times and considered all that, but I think they're pretty firm in this is the plan they would like approved. It is compliant with the bylaw, and, you know, if it's clearly
Okay,
understood.
that's just what that's what that comment was
Okay.
Yeah,
trying to request from the applicant.
yeah, just trying to avoid putting a future owner in a bind when they come, you know, when they want to have a different perspective of the backside of the house, and trying to, you know, as Delia aptly noted, more usable deck in the future. So, but we understand the position. So,
Okay. Thank you. The next comment, the FANO markers should state no mowing or disturbance beyond this point. We would request that, happy to accept that as a special condition in a order of conditions if granted. Yep.
yeah, Dan, just on those type of points, if you will, rather we'd rather avoid special conditions for those type of issues that can get put on a plan specifically. I think downstream it helps with the contractors, it helps with staff to look at a consolidated set of plans versus trying to flip over to, you know, a legal document or special conditions and trying to kind of coordinate those issues between text and plans. So wherever you can put on details with this, with the appropriate wording on the plans, that's the way it should go.
Okay, I'm sure we can add a note to the plan.
Thank you.
The next comment is regarding the ISMP. The comment wanted to clarify that no heavy equipment will occur for this work. And again, well, we had requested a special condition. If the preference is to just add the language in the ISMP, then certainly we can do that. That's a minor change.
Yep.
Excuse me, Ed, could we go back to the pheno marker
Yes.
comment just real
Yep.
quickly?
Sure.
Just before I forget, I'm sorry, did you mention what type of wording was going to be on the pheno markers? I missed that.
Well, the comment said it should state no mowing or disturbance beyond this point.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
So we're happy to use that exact language.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
The next comment was regarding the stockpile location. If you can see in the, it's just to the right of the garage. And so the comment was requesting, you know, could that be reconsidered? There's, you know, there's erosion control on the down gradient side of that. I think a lot of thought went into kind of how the construction would take place and what's the logical location for it. But the applicant is willing to, you know, have, again, we're at a special condition, but, you know, have that be determined during the pre-construction meeting with NRC staff. That's certainly reasonable to the applicant. And in many cases, you know, it makes sense to have that flexibility, because once you finally get out there and everyone's there looking at site conditions, you know, having a little bit of flexibility rather than being bound to exactly on the plan might make sense. So, you know, if something could be worked out as a condition that it must be approved by NRC staff, you know, prior to the start of work, you know, something like that, it seems reasonable. But short of that, then we'd like to just keep it as proposed on the plan.
I think, Dan, I think the only comment is that it might as well start off on the right foot in terms of, I don't think the location is really necessarily inappropriate, but I think how it straddles over the slope downwards to include that in the stockpile, you know, location just seems odd that you'd be placing it on a slope, you know, towards the wetlands. So again, maybe it just gets shrunk and stays on the so driveway level location. And of course, you know, if things change in the field, you can always consult staff, but it seems to me like you could just shrink that stockpile location and get it up on the driveway would kind of get you off on the right foot.
Yep. Okay. All right. We'll see what we can do about that. The next comment is regarding requesting that we provide an operation and maintenance plan to ensure that the underground structure functions as intended. So we attached the O&M plan that was approved by DEP for the adjacent, I'm sorry, for the superseding order. And so we feel that since a stormwater plan is not required under the bylaw, and this is a plan that was approved by DEP under the state regulations, that this should suffice. This should be considered, you know, if DEP is approving it, it's clearly been through their full review and vetting, and it should, since it's not required under the Concord bylaw, we feel like that this is adequate. This, you know, what's been provided should be considered, you know, more than adequate for this purpose.
Okay, well, I get, you know, we'll come to the stormwater issue eventually, I think further down, but, you know, as far as the O&M plan, we can, I guess that'll be discussed further, because I think we have a different, I know we have a different perspective on the stormwater regs in terms of, you know, what's not covered under the wetlands bylaw is one issue, but under the town of Concord stormwater regs, this development will have to comply. So
Sure, that's
and I think
understood.
that's, you know, further discussed downstream in the commentary here.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest that you know, we got your responses to comments, which you also shared with the engineering division. Those will all be reviewed by the town engineer or assistant town engineer. And you'll get comments back from them on that. So I think the next set of engineering or drainage comments, I think we can skip those because those are going to be reviewed by Public Works. And you know what their comments are. I mean, the commission typically defers to engineering in terms of what makes sense from the stormwater standpoint.
Okay, were you implying skip the second part of this response letter, or?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that you guys provided comments back, which was not the intention of us giving you the comments, but so I think we can go through these if you want to go through each of these comments. But we're going to look to Public Works to give us their recommendation on how they are going to, you know, accept or not accept the responses that you've provided. So I don't think there's a whole lot of value to going through each of these comments unless anybody on the commission has questions or, you know, specifically related to the drainage and, you know, the engineering of that stormwater management.
No, not my expertise. Leave it with Public Works.
So if I may, Steve Marsh, I'm the applicant. Are we going to be dealing directly with DPW then? Because this isn't
No.
under the purview of Conscom anyway.
It is under the purview because it's the permit that's being reviewed. So Public Works reviews permits,
For you, for the commission?
correct?
Okay. Although we don't have to comply with stormwater management because we're a grandfathered lot. So who do we answer to for
No,
this?
no,
Would this be-
no, I would not agree with that. You're not a grandfathered lot. You're a new lot that is proposing new construction that has to comply with, you know, town. This is only being filed under the town
Bylaw,
bylaw.
correct.
But you have to-
We feel
you
that
have-
we're in compliance. So who do we, at this point, we're going to submit information to DPW directly
me.
or
to
you?
me, and I'll share it with them, and they have it.
Okay, so, and then you said that you don't really understand what they'll be saying. So should we be dealing directly with them as this proceeds? So if they have questions, I can have Dan or my engineer be in touch with them and work out whatever issues with them directly. And then
Sure,
see-
I mean, it's fine if you want to coordinate with them, but you need to make sure that I'm copied on anything that is.
Oh, absolutely. I would, yeah, certainly. No, totally agree with that.
So that
But
we're in the
so-
loop on that. But yes, if you have questions about their comments,
So we can deal directly with them. That's fine. Okay, that's really all the clarification I needed.
sure,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
And it's not fair to say we don't understand it. It's through the expertise and know how to answer the
Exactly.
questions. We certainly understand their responses.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think there are a couple other things aside from stormwater left on the list. I think there was a comment on the riprap. I think we'd like to see that riprap pulled out of the 50. So just got to kind of tuck back in a little bit.
just back here.
Yep. And then I think again, most of my stormwater as we get to the end, but I think as far as the, I think it also speaks at one of the last commentaries is the invasive species management plan. And I think it's, you know, our understanding, I would think it would be yours too, Steve and Dan, that as I understand it or have come to learn is that as I understand, there's a retention basin on part of the lot. That was an agreement between the owner of this lot and the Beckman's lot, I think the adjacent.
That is correct. There is an agreement. The Beckmans were to put in the detention basin as part of their 4-lot subdivision. and to do whatever was necessary. They control the full 23,000 square foot. They have an easement over that full 23,000 square foot area that we've given them an easement on to do invasive management, as well as putting in the detention basin.
Okay, so I think it's our understanding that in that agreement, that they would be doing the retention basin and all that work. However, it falls to you to do the invasive species management.
Yeah, we just totally disagree with that. That's not going to happen, because if I don't get my permit for my lot, why would I, just from a reasonable standpoint, why would I do an invasive species management plan for the subdivision? We would refuse to do that. We've been in discussions with our attorneys over at Sherry Gould, who actually owns the lot at this point in time, totally is in agreement with me. We have no control over that. That's under a totally different notice of intent that is specifically for the road that the commission approved. We have nothing to do with that. We have given them an easement and a right to do all of that work. They've actually already started most of the work. The detention basin's in. They've already started to dig out and remove the plants. I think the problem is now is that they realize that these plants are very expensive, and they're probably $20,000 or $30,000 worth of plants. And I think that they don't want to spend the money.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that.
So, but we're not going to do it. I can tell you that right now, which jeopardizes that whole subdivision, I would imagine. Or at least,
again, from what I understand and what I've seen legally, which is just a couple of emails in terms of what their understanding is, it seems like, again, their position.
we disagree with it, Ed. That's just so.
Well, I appreciate your disagreement with them, but it might be something that has to be kind of hashed out on the legal side of the ledger.
Well, they can do the work and then they can sue me after, but we're not going to do it. I'm not going to be doing any of that work. So that's not going to happen. So if that jeopardizes the whole subdivision, they can sue me for that.
Okay, so
But the work still needs to be done for them to get a certificate of compliance regardless. Am I correct about that?
So as Ed pointed out, that's something that you and the Beckmans will need to resolve.
I don't need to resolve anything.
So Steve, let me finish, please. This is the 4-lot subdivision was appealed, as you know, and there was a superseding order that was issued.
Correct.
So the commission doesn't have any decision-making process around that 4-lot subdivision. DEP will have to be the one that decides whether or not they will get a COC or not. And
oh, so DEP's doing that. Okay, great.
that's because it was appealed, it's no longer in the commission's jurisdiction.
How does that apply to me then with my notice of intent and my
because the reason that it applies is because here's the property line here of your lot or Sherry Gould's lot.
Correct.
Okay, so this now becomes like a no man's land of who's going to manage those invasives, and it's on your lot. So if it doesn't get done by the Beckmans, the commission is going to want to see that it's done by you.
Okay, so if you read
it just has to be resolved.
Okay, but so if you read under 19E, I believe in the order of conditions that was issued for that, as long as there is a legal document in place, which is the easement, this burden lies on the Beckmans. Like I said, we're not going to do it. We'll tell DEP we're not going to do it. So they won't get a COC, and they probably won't get occupancy permits or sign off on their road. So they can go and do it.
However that pans out, Steve, is it just needs to be resolved.
Yeah, we're not doing that. That's our position. We will not do it.
Okay, understood.
Yep.
We've reached out with them and said, look, we'll work with you. We've heard no response. And, if I don't get a response from the other side, then you know what, then we can go to court and see. But like I said, they're in peril because they need to get a sign off from DEP or the commission, either or. I'm worried about my stuff. They have legal rights to this property under an easement. That full 23,000 square foot, half an acre that we gave to them, right? That easement was to do that work. It's clearly spelled out in the NOI. So
yeah, and
that's
their
position.
contention, just for the record,
but I don't want that to
it's
hold
only
me.
Specific to.
How does that affect me on my notice of intent?
Doesn't include the invasive species management. So you will need to work that out and get that resolved so that the invasives management is taken care of by somebody. The commission doesn't care who takes care of it. It just needs to be figured out.
So DEP issued their SOC to them, not to me
Mm-hmm.
applying. So regardless of what they tell you, I have
Yep.
my own
No,
notice of
I
intent,
understand that.
right? They kept me, listen, the reality is that I've gone through quite a bit here, with having to file an appeal to DEP myself. So if I'm going to be dealing with DEP as far as my invasive species, is that how that's going to work? Because I'm filing with you under a notice of intent.
Right. So the way that it's going to work is that however DEP, you and the Beckmans get that resolved,
Mhm.
how that gets resolved. It's really out of the commission's hands.
What about the other side where Beckman's on their own property? They have to do their own, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Correct.
Yeah, it's just this piece right here that's. in
Yeah,
question.
so just for the record, I'm telling you right now, we will not be doing it. So that could jeopardize the subdivision and everything, not just for me, but for the Beckmans. But I don't want that to impede my notice of intent because it's really not relevant to what I've filed for now.
Understood.
Thank you.
Okay.
We filed separately. We should have filed all together, but we weren't, and that would have made sense not only for the commission, but for everybody involved. But
Yeah.
we were kept out of the loop, right? So I have to go through this whole process, for a single lot. The road's going to be put in. So, whoever has to do that and whoever has to enforce it, but let them sue if that's the case. We're prepared for that. If they don't get their occupancy permits or whatever the town decides to do. But I can tell you right now, firmly, we will not pay for any of that work. So they've already started it. Like I said, when somebody gets a $20,000 or $30,000 bill, it's a big bill for those specific species of plants. They're specialty plants.
Yeah, no, it is a big deal.
So, and it's a lot of physical hard work that they had to do to get what they've done. And it looks great, but we offered the olive branch to them and said, look, you put the plants in, and we'll take it for the 2 years because it's a 3-year period that the commission wants under that NOI to review everything. And I'll be responsible for it because at that point, I don't want anybody walking onto that property when we sell the house ultimately anyway. So
Makes sense.
anyway, I don't want to get too far off on it, but I appreciate the commission's position. Obviously, you've been talking to the Beckmans or their attorney, but I can tell you emphatically, no way we're doing anything unless they reach out to me. And I've already done that about 1,000 times, even as much as today, saying, look, we own a nursery. We can get the plants for a lot less money.
Good.
And,
So I see that Craig Beckman is on the call, so perhaps the two of you can offline have a conversation about this.
certainly, yeah, my phone's on.
Great.
Good.
All right, I appreciate that, though. Thank
Okay.
you.
I guess another point, Steve, while we're here on, as far as any discussions with the planning board in regard to, as I understand it, the road was originally approved for a 4-lot subdivision. Now, obviously, there's a 5th lot here. Is there any kind of communication with the planning board on clarifying that or?
No, look, Ed, I've been doing this for probably 30 years. I've played this game for a long time, and I don't mean to come across as cocky, but my position is that this is a grandfathered lot that was approved back in like 1923. Whoever put the road in, and we have an agreement with the Beckmans that they would give me whatever was required for my frontage because we're a grandfathered lot, So that's our position. The planning board, the last time I spoke with them many years ago, was that they told us to go get all our permits and then come back to them. And that's the path that we have pursued. Again, we were left out of the loop when the Beckmans were doing their subdivision. We should have been included in it. We were completely kept in the dark about it. Hence, I'm here now filing for a separate NOI. We should have been filing all together. Would have made the work for everybody involved much easier. Now we've got an issue with, wetlands plants because they don't want to pay for it and, whatever else, but they've already done the work. They've got all the utilities to my property. So we're ready to go. I mean, they've got the water.
So just as far as that comment goes, Steve, the reason that we bring that up is because It's not recommended that the commission close this hearing
Mhm.
until all the issues with the planning board are resolved.
Okay, so,
For that is so that if there are changes that are necessary to your single-family home proposal, if you close, what that means is, as you know, you understand this, that it means that you'll have to refile an amendment. It's a new abutter notification. It's a new legal notice. It's additional cost and, time for you. So it's a recommendation. It's not something that,
no, and I appreciate that, Delia, but again, with this has been going on for close to 7 years, I believe. I'm willing to take that risk. Again, I'm taking the recommendation. I take your recommendations, they're important as well. I can go to the planning board, have a discussion with them, but I would like to continue my notice of intent process. And I may take the risk and say, look, I may ask the commission to close based on the information, and then I'll take my chances and hopefully I don't have to come back.
fine.
So, and as far as the notice of intent with regard to like the stockpile, for example, maybe we can do the septic system after and I can put that stockpile up front. That's something I'll discuss with them. But if you have legitimate issues or issues that, are relevant to what the commission is extremely concerned about, like runoff or, silt getting into the wetlands, I totally get that. I understand that. We can look at doing the septic system after the house is up. And then stockpile up front, pulls everything a little bit further away. And I appreciate that, because that's something that maybe we would have done the septic system right after we did the foundation. So we're not opposed to that. Those kind of suggestions are greatly appreciated, so it also takes away a little bit of the liability from us and helps us keep everything right up front. So, and further away from the wetland. So I get that. But other than that, I mean, as far as like the DPW stuff, we get it. We'll deal with DPW, CCU on that, and try to work out whatever issues we have with them between the engineer and the wetland specialist. I think it's going to be more engineering, I would think. And then if we can work that out. But I think, right now, I want to just keep moving forward with our notice of intent.
Okay,
So that would be our position.
okay, thank
And I'm
you.
not trying to be combatant about it.
No.
We just have to pick a path at this point, right or wrong.
No, I understand you're trying to push forward,
Yeah.
so understand.
Okay,
So-
great. I appreciate that you do.
Okay. Any other thoughts from the commissioners? No? Okay. We'll move to public comments. Any public commentary? Delia, you see anybody out?
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay.
If anybody has a comment that they would like to make, please
Yep.
raise your hand or jump in.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. So I guess Dan and Steve, if you've got some, I guess some plans to clean up in terms of some of the comments you heard here tonight. So I assume you may want to continue to the 16th and to get that. And Delia, to if they want to move ahead, come the 16th, they'll have to get the plans in Friday.
Can't hear you.
You're on mute, Delia. Oh,
I'm sorry about that. Any revisions would need to be made by Friday. Engineering will not have reviewed
right.
comments, before the next meeting. So I would actually recommend to continue out to the January 6th. I think it's the 6th, maybe the 5th, the 6th meeting, so that all comments can be addressed at the same time at one meeting.
And we're fine with that. So we'll do January 5th or 6th, whatever that next meeting
Okay.
is. So we'll,
6th.
okay, so we'll do the 6th. In the meantime, I will reach out to the planning board and see what they're recommending. I'll try to get something in writing for you. If I can, I'll forward it to you, at least from the planning.
That-
As far as DPW, we'll deal with them directly and CC you on everything. And we'll make a
Great.
couple of changes to the plan. We'll try to move that stockpile up front and
The
put
rip
those-
wrap, get in off the 50 and,
and then we'll change those little signs. So we can do that.
okay.
Great. Have
Sounds
a
great.
wonderful evening. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the
Okay.
6th.
We'll be on the
Take care.
6th. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, moving on. Let's see, we have new applications, notice of intent, Walsh, 150 Garfield Road. Who will be presenting on that tonight?
I will. Katie Enright from Howard Stein Hudson.
Hi, Katie.
The office is at 114 Turnpike Road in Chelmsford. Good evening, everyone. I'm here tonight on behalf of Kim and Katie, who are also on the call. Also on the call tonight is Dave Crossman, the wetland scientist. You may remember this plan was an old house that was taken down and a new house constructed a few years ago. We pretty much stayed in the general area where the original house was and moved the driveway to that north side of the plan. It used to be on the south side. It essentially stayed on that plateau that exists there today. So you can see in the backyard, there's a pretty steep slope there. We left that from the previous house, and there is a little pathway that goes down to that lower area, which Delia is doing a good job being Vanna White there, moving the mouse for me. Essentially, Kim and Katie would like to, if possible, create a little flat yard area. The lot that they have, you can see on our previous plan, is a little over 3 acres, so it's a large lot. There is this steep slope, and it really doesn't make sense to do anything to try to make more land area around the existing house because of the steep slope. Also, we have the septic system in that lower corner. You can see it kind of in a rectangular area just to the southwest of the house. Yeah, just downhill a little bit from there, Delia. So it's right in this general area. So we don't want to fill anymore. That was the septic system from the previous house. We actually didn't need a new septic system. So we want to be sure to continue to protect that. So what we're looking at doing is just creating a little lawn area. They recently had a child and are looking just for an area, a small area to put up, potentially a swing set or have a little place to run or play in the backyard. So what we've done here, since the application for the new house went in, we've actually had Dave Crossman go out and reflag the wetlands. So this is a new wetland location that's on the plan here that's been field located. So we've established the new 25-foot no disturbance around the new wetland boundary. And you can see that is on the plan as Delia is going around there. And what we've looked at doing is essentially just looking at an efficient area that we could create a small flat area of lot at the bottom of that ramp area. So what we've done is we've established an elevation of 179. And because the land slopes off slightly, we're proposing a fill in that area. The fill is between the 50, there's between the 25 and 50, there's the slope area, and then between the 50 and 100 is the flat area. We had proposed 9 trees that need to be taken down, but since we've received Colleen and Delia's comments, there's 2 Norway maples that we had marked to be protected, but those are being asked to be taken out. So when we update the plan, we'll take out those 2 Norway maples and leave the root systems and the stump in place just to protect that area. So those trees will be added to that. So there'll be 11 trees taken down proposed. We've proposed a 3-to-1 slope down from the new flat area to our erosion control line, which is silt fence, or it's actually straw wattle backed by silt fence. And I know in the comments from the NRC, we have a request to reinforce the straw wattles with silt fence at the base of the slope and add a detail to the plan. So even though we've labeled it that way, I don't believe our detail shows that correctly. So we'll update that detail for the next plan set too. We have also planted a pretty extreme amount of plantings here. You can see what we're looking at doing, and Dave Crossman helped us with this also, is essentially planting that whole slope. So we have a new area of planted trees and shrubs. There's 20 new trees that we're proposing to plant to replace the 9 we had previously proposed, now up to 11. Those trees are red maples, white pine, tulip tree, and red oak. And we've also proposed 50 different shrubs. So we're talking about pepperbush, high bush blueberry, winterberry, maple leaf arrowwood, and Canadian serviceberry. So you can see those are all color coded at the top of the plan there. And that would be on the 3-to-1 slope down to the limit of work. So our main area that we would be accessing this area is by that pathway that comes down right there. So right now there's some, there's wooden stairs in that area and a post and rail fence on the side. There's about 8 to 10 feet in that area. So we would plan our construction entrance to be at the end of the existing driveway, and that these stairs would essentially be destroyed by getting down in that back area. But that would allow us a path to get down to that flat area, and would have an area stockpile just inside the 100-foot buffer off to the right of the driveway at the top of the page that you see there. I believe the other comments from NRC are providing a tree protection detail, which would be happy to add to our detail sheets in the next plan revision. We'll do a better job of making sure we denote where the septic system is, so it's a little bit bolder, and call out some protection measures for the septic system. Like I said previously, we'll reinforce the straw wattles with silt fence and just make sure we update the detail to match the note. And then the COC from the previous project has not yet been recorded, so we're going to work with our consultants to track that down and make sure that gets into the registry certainly before we receive a new permit, hopefully from the NRC. With that, not sure, Delia, if there was anything else that I missed. There's been a bunch of iterations kind of between when we first filed this in May and now. Certainly with COVID, things have been a little bit more interesting in the last few months. So I don't want to bring you through all the iterations. This is where we stand today, and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, I think the iterations were probably driven by maybe the wetlands flagging, just kind of finalizing that back and forth a little bit. Looks like there's just minor mods on the square footage as to the lawn area. From what I can tell, I think you've touched on all the points that staff had. So I don't have any commentary necessarily, since you've touched on those. I don't know if the other commissioners have any points of view, comments.
No, it's very clear. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Ed,
Yeah, Greg.
just a comment about you there. If I read this right, you've got a 30-inch Norway maple right in the heart of your flat area. And I know we normally want the stumps left, but I just want to point out that that stump will deteriorate and settle out. And I don't know whether it's a practical idea to leave that there. If it's going to be a flat area, it isn't prone to erosion. It's the one right below your hand right now. That guy right there. I'm just pointing out that that may be an impractical solution to leave it. You may want to consider, I don't know what others think about it. But the more important, that was just an aside when you said you were taking that Norway maple out, hadn't really thought through that very extensively, is that this is a play area for a child and whatever, which is, totally understandable. I believe that unless you have a very unusual child, we all have unusual children, but one that's remarkably gifted in obeying rules and regulations, they are not going to go out the side of the house, down around the corner and down a trail. So have you considered putting some kind of steps or something just from a practical standpoint to get from the house to this lower level? I see the septic system prevents you from moving the flat space up the hill, but it's just a question. It's not, I'm just curious whether you'll be back here saying that Susie tumbles down the hill all the time, and can I have a way for her to get down there? I'm just asking. It's not I don't want to waste a lot of time on it, but it just strikes me as unusual that a child would do that.
No, certainly. And if I may, Mr. Chair, I can answer.
Please.
So we had looked, when we were doing the house originally, we had looked at doing some sort of stairway down to that lower area. But there's really no access really. I know there's the deck, but there's a wood fence with a like a chain link within it. So you can't really kind of get out of the upper yard unless you're going out the main door that the family uses is over where it says over this, this porch area with the paver pad. That's really the main entrance to the house, and or they come through the garage on the side. So it really is kind of more conducive to when you're leaving the house to go out the side door or the garage area. And that way you can take the more, the gentle slope kind of down to that back area. It's pretty, I have pictures if you want to see, but the slope behind the house is pretty ominous. You wouldn't really wanna, and that's why the fence is there. You really don't want to go through there. Although it might make for a fun sledding hill someday, but.
Sure will.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's okay. I think I think Greg's just trying to point out the potential
No,
practical.
you've answered the question. You have thought it through and you know why you're choosing this route, and it may not be the most direct route, but it's the most practical. I don't know that, so you've just described it. Thank you for doing that.
Right, you're welcome.
And Greg, also just to clarify, so these two Norway maples were going to be protected, but we thought they should come out since they're invasive. But
Great.
these, all of the, these trees that are in the proposed lawn area, those are going to be stumped, correct?
That is correct. And that middle one that you were pointing to, I believe, is actually a white pine in the middle.
That's a white pine, you're right.
Yeah.
Right. Then there's a couple red maples.
Red maple, yep.
They're all red maples and white pines, I believe, that are.
Yep, you're right.
So
And
you're not
black
taking any of
birch.
those down?
Those ones are coming down. The Norway maples were the only ones that are up. It's up to the side, right at the limit of work, that we were just going to leave the stumps in place. The rest of them would be stumped.
Okay.
Would be stumped.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. I
The
didn't
lawn,
hear that.
no stumps in the lawn. Yeah. Okay.
And this is Kim Walsh speaking. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kim, could you just just state your name and address, please, just for the record?
Oh yeah, this is Kim Walsh at 150 Garfield Road in
Thank
Concord.
you.
Gregory, I appreciate your thought there around our children. We actually have twins and a third one on the way. And you can see in the plan that we do have the option, again, we're fine either way, but there's granite steps there. And we have a post and rail fence right now where we actually do have a gate that we put into the post and rail fence.
Oh, so you can access it. Well, fine. Hey, we're way too much time on this. You thought this through.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that.
No, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
I guess given that Greg opened up the question around children, the other thing that we see come back, and again, I'm sure you thought this through, is fencing in areas where children go to play so they don't start traipsing off into the hinterlands there on your lot. So I don't know if there was any thought about that of fencing down in the new yard area.
We had thought about that in the original submission to do something like a post and rail kind of at the edge of the slope. But that would be a structure that would be within the 50. So we didn't want to do that. We thought about maybe doing kind of like a planting buffer at the top, but it's really at a 3-to-1 slope with the amount of planting that we're going to do on that slope. It'll be pretty gentle.
Okay.
And the backyard after that is sloping very gradually down to the wetland at the back.
Mhm.
So
Okay. Just wanted to check through on that.
Any other comments from the commissioner? Okay. Any public comment? Okay. Delia, you don't see any?
Not seeing any.
Okay. So I guess Katie, I think you touched on all the revisions you noted. So I assume you want to get that in on Friday so we can kind of wrap this up on the 16th.
sure.
Okay. Very good. I think we're all set. Thanks
All right.
very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a good night. All right. Moving to the next hearing, 106 Alden Road, request for determination of applicability. And who will be presenting for the applicant this evening?
So I'm Lance Ramshaw and Gail Wine is my spouse.
Good evening.
Good evening. So our goal is to replace a screen porch on the rear of our house, which overlooks one of the fields that's part of Darrell Farm. The field is bordered by a small stream, perhaps originally for field drainage. When we bought the, sorry?
You're, at least for me, it's going in and out. Maybe if you,
For me as well.
maybe if you could address, I think when you're addressing, as you're posturing to, is more clear when you turn away from the screen, it's hard to hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So is this better?
That's
Yes.
good.
Good. So when we bought the house in 1997, it had a rear deck connecting to a freestanding screened porch, both built at roughly 6 feet over ground level. And the footprint of the deck and porch, we now understand, somewhat overlaps the stream's 100-foot buffer zone. As you can see on the map, the square behind the house, that's the old screen porch, and it's on the line of the buffer zone. In 2002, we replaced those original structures, which were rotting away, with a similar deck and screen porch on the same footprint. And those new ones are now also deteriorating. This time we're planning to reduce the footprint, putting in just a screen porch attached to the house in the area of the old deck, and constructed this time with AZEK, so we hope it won't rot.
That's good.
We actually only became aware of the wetlands buffer zone issue a month or so ago during the town's final review of our current contractor's permit application. The issue didn't come up in relation to our 2002 building permit. Thus, we didn't know that there was any reason not to remove the old structure while waiting for the building permit to be issued. So unfortunately, our contractor has already taken down the old porch, leaving the joists that supported the old deck, which he hopes to reuse. So that's the A1 that you're looking at now shows on the left the old screen porch and deck, and then on the right the newer where the screen porch would be in the space of the old deck.
If you go to A4, it shows an aerial view of it outlined.
Right, so this just in the aerial shot, you can actually see this is for the old screen porch and deck. And this just shows where we're hoping to put the new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think that describes our situation. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. You know, from what I can see, it looks like it's fairly straightforward. It's a reduction in, you know, the footprint, and it's certainly no closer to. So again, I don't have any real commentary. It looks okay to, you know, at least my review. Any of the commissioners have any commentary on it?
No.
Okay. Turning to the public, any public comments? Okay, I don't see any. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to issue a negative determination of applicability number 3 with the following conditions. Number 1, a pre-construction site, a visit shall be held with the DNR staff and the contractor to review limits of work. Number 2, stockpiling shall be outside the 100-foot buffer zone. And number 3, after the project has been completed, the applicant shall submit a letter to the NIC stating that all work has been conducted in accordance with all conditions of this determination of applicability. Any changes from the RDA shall be described. And this is for 106 Alden Street, and the file number is RDA number 20-19.
Thanks, Judy. Thanks, Greg. Take a vote. Greg?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Nick?
Aye.
Judy,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well. Thanks very much. Good luck on the construction.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
we'd like to thank Delia for all her encouragement and help with this project.
Yep, well, thank you.
Most welcome.
Okay. Let's see. Last hearing of the evening, notice of intent, 536 Lowell Road. Delia, do we have a DEP file number on this yet?
It's an RDA.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's a notice of intent.
Notice of intent.
That's a notice of intent.
And there is no file number.
Okay. Okay. Who's going to be speaking for the applicant this evening?
Hi, well, Richard Harrington, engineer from Williams Barrages.
Hey, Richard.
And hi, how are you?
Good.
Jonathan Bird and Allison Hope Kennedy are present also, if you, they're the owners of the property. What we have is an existing single-family house that abuts Macomb Pond, and Macomb Pond has your typical resource areas along it. We have delineated the edge of the bank, the edge of wetlands associated with that border on the pond. There is a FEMA floodplain also that we determined via elevation from a field survey. And then you'll see that the 25-foot buffer zone line is on town property prior to our common lot line. From that point, the entire backyard is lawn area within the buffer zone that we're talking about here tonight. We have an existing deck area off the back of the home that's approximately 87 feet off the edge of wetlands. We're going to remove a portion of that deck and convert it to lawn, and then that's exempt underneath the bylaw and the state regs. The conversion of deck to lawn is allowed, and it's outside the 50. We're going to maintain the deck and place an addition above the deck area so that we can enlarge a second floor bedroom. So that area that's shown at that 15, the darker square, the triangle of it where the hand is now is in the buffer zone. And so that area is basically existing deck that will be converted to an addition over the deck. And then just above that, we'll have a little bit of removal of the deck and a patio there as opposed to the larger deck to the right. So that's exempt also. So the conversion of lawn to patio is exempt under both the state and the local regs as well. I personally walked the property with the homeowner to determine the best way to get to this point on the property with the machinery to dig the footings for this addition. So at the bottom of the page, we have the existing driveway location off a Lowell Road, and there is there are larger mature trees in the front yard area. So I was able to measure off the house and showed a temporary construction access where we'll just put siltation controls along the edge. And we'll put down wooden planks or plywood to walk the machine to the back. We'll remove a section of fence that currently goes from the house down off the property. And then we would use a rubber track excavator, typical like landscapers use, and they dig the footings and then backfill and remove any excess material. There is 20 feet of fence that, unbeknownst to the owners, extends onto town property. We talked to Colleen, the assistant director, and we agreed to remove that section of fence, and we added a note number 4 for that portion, which is a darker section of the fence. And so they'll just measure back and remove whatever sections get you over 20 feet and back onto their own property. And so then from the edge of the fence, we have a proposed siltation, start our erosion control, the straw wattles that'll wrap around and out to the back of the shed area. So that'll protect the mature trees that are in the lawn area. And that will just keep it a really nice, close, tight work area around the proposed addition. And then once they're done, any lawn disturbed will be reseeded and returned back to its natural state. And then similarly to the access point, which is reflected by notes 6 and 7 that we added, and then note 5 was the erosion mats to protect the access. Very straightforward. We didn't think we needed a notice of intent, but it was just safer to do that with the resource areas and the proximity to the pond. And so we thought it was best for that portion, for that to just to be safe with that and have an order of conditions issued for this work.
Thanks, Richard. Again, relatively straightforward. Getting off taking the fence off I guess the town property. as noted. Other than that, I agree. It's a straightforward project. Any of the commissioners have any commentary on this?
No.
No.
No. Okay. Moving to the public, any public commentary? None? Okay. Let's see. I guess we cannot close without a DEP file number, correct? Okay.
That's
So
correct.
I guess we could just get that number, then close it next hearing on the 16th.
I would, DEP is still, 3 weeks out before they issue file numbers typically. So we will have an order of conditions ready for the next meeting. And Rich, no need for anybody to attend. There's no plan changes necessary. So that would be on the agenda for closing and issuing, and that permit would be mailed out on Friday.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Other business. I think we've got again, talking about 177 Barnes Hill Road, the Johnson residence, this ongoing potential enforcement order. And if I'm not mistaken, we have someone here to discuss that further with us this evening.
Yeah. Uh-oh. I'm Scott Smyers from Oxbow Associates.
Hi, Scott.
Hi. We met last on November 4th. And since then conducted a wetland delineation at the site, and we're looking at the screen or the image right here that of the wetland flags that I located with the GPS. That are in the pasture and are very close to the flags that were established in the previous evaluation by Leah Basbane, because I could find the flags out there, although they were not surveyed in or GPSed, but a lot of them matched up with approximately where my flags were. It's a lot of hydric soil out there because it's a active pasture where the vegetation is not easily identifiable, especially at the end of the growing season, but the soils were clearly hydric up to that point. And then I also looked at, if you look at the west, or maybe the zoom in one, yeah, right on the western side there, that purple shape is the approximate location where there was a pile of stone that was going to be spread there, and then it was removed and has been cleaned up for the most part, but it hasn't been seeded yet. But that's the approximate location where that is, which is around 300 square feet. And then I also went through the exercise of looking at the aerial photos over the past 5 years or more, and confirmed what, according to my notes anyway, what Delia had suggested last time, that the stone on the eastern side near flags 12 and 13 and 14 was indeed put down sometime in the year 2016. That's when it shows up on the Google Earth photos. So I also dug a couple of holes in there just to assess the depth of the stone, which is always fun, digging through crushed stone. But in one place near flag 13, it was approximately 12 inches deep, and then up closer to flag 12, it was much shallower, around 4 inches deep. And so it's not, a uniform depth across that whole area, but it is, thicker down near the lower end of the field, closer to the existing gate. And then on top of that, I also met with Mr. Johnson. We were there, and he informed me that he wants to continue to use this for horses and pasture, and he has the barn and the existing horses there. He has a cornfield on the northern end of his property, but he has initiated contact with the Natural Resource Conservation Service and has set up an appointment with them for January sometime. Of course, they're delayed and more than usual because of COVID, but they are going to help him work through establishing an official farm plan so that he can make sure that he makes the right decisions in the future land use for the horses. And one thing I don't know if I don't know if I can share my screen, but we did look at the northern end of the site, and I had a couple of figures. If I can show you briefly, up by the cornfield, because I think it's relevant.
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, Scott.
All right. Basically, I wanted to take a look up there because he had told me about the cornfield before, and there was historic, a number of years ago, him and one of his neighbors had, can I share now?
Go ahead.
Let's see. That's the same one. That's the same one. Okay, so up here is what I'm talking about. You have to go here. Here's where we were focusing on before. Down here, you go down Estabrook Road a little bit, cut across this neighbor's property. And here is the cornfield up here. And there was some invasive control that they did along the stone wall together a number of years ago. And then if you zoom in here, just figure out, okay, well, that was about 470 linear feet of control. There's some growing back, mostly bittersweet, and some rose, multiflora rose. But in this area here, it's very dense, right along the edge of the wetland. A lot of mostly bittersweet, but also mixed in multiflora rose and glossy buckthorn. There is some glossy buckthorn too up by the road, up by Barnes Hill Road, but very not as bad as I've seen it in many places. So what I'm getting to is that I think there's some alternatives besides removing the stone that's already in place that wasn't authorized. We understand that, but to remove that is going to be quite a bit of disruption to the soil. Obviously, the stone has worked its way into the muck that was there before. It's a Freetown muck. Most of that area is mapped as. So removing that is removing a lot of other soil to bring it, if you get all that out, then you're going to have to import some topsoil most likely just to get it back to grade. And then you end up with a big soggy area right next to the gate. It'll dry out in the summer like it always has, but it's going to be an ongoing issue. The horses don't like to be too muddy, and it will get quite muddy in there, especially in the spring. And maybe we can do something that's more ecologically meaningful, in my opinion, by doing some invasive removal back here and really restore that whole area. It's adjacent to a nice wetland there, but it has a very dense thicket of invasives. And I think that I'd like to just discuss that with the commission and see what they think about these options. So with that, I can stop sharing my screen. I do have some photographs, but I don't know if they're really that helpful. I could show you as well, but we can keep moving. It's up to you.
Okay, no, I think that's sufficient. I thought the aerials were helpful in terms of, the delineating that it was somewhere in 2016 in terms of when that incursion happened in the approximately 2,000 square feet, give or take, in the pasture.
Something like that, yeah. I haven't measured that out, but yeah.
Yeah, just eyeballing it a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. I just had a couple of questions. One, where you remove the gravel from it looked like it's a kind of an access for machinery coming into the pasture.
On the west side?
On Barnes Hill Road.
Yeah, on the west side, it's a very temporary access. It's there's a fence down there, And when they have to access it, they, literally have to get out the hammer and break the fence, undo the fence. It's not a swing gate or any real easy way
Right.
to get in.
Yeah,
Not like the other side.
yeah. Okay, because it's, that's right on the wetland, obviously it looked like the gravel might have been put down to kind of stabilize that area, with its removal, obviously accessing it in the future would be, in the dry season would be, much more appropriate than in the wet.
It's not as wet in that area, right from the road into the field. It's pretty high and dry for the first 50 feet or so. It's a little bit of a different lay of the land over there. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an issue. If they remove it, they can still access there with tractors or whatever they
Okay.
need. Sure.
Okay. And then I guess it's really just a discussion here in terms of how the commission feels about that 2016 incursion. I think it's, fine to kind of cast back within 4 or 5 years in terms of, what's transpired without our knowledge, and try to determine what the best kind of, course of action is. And as I understand it, you're suggesting that perhaps there's some, invasives to go after on the other part of some land adjacent to wetlands.
Yeah. And it's the same wetland, it's further away, but it is the same wetland system. So
I'm just going to jump in here and just if this was a filing that came in through, the normal process, and it isn't, we're looking at this as an after the fact. Any fill in wetlands, the only way to mitigate fill in wetlands is by creating wetlands somewhere else. So I would strongly advise that the commission, you're not legally able to allow that fill to remain unless there is a one-to-one wetlands replacement that is going to be proposed somewhere else. So that's one thing. And then whatever is in the 25, I mean, we have the waiver provisions are that there has to be an improvement over existing conditions, and we don't even, I think we understand, we're intuiting what the project purpose is. It's never been presented or proposed, but it's because it's, there's a dry, the applicant wants it, or the Mr. Johnson wants a drier area for the horses that he boards. So if there's, if the commission is going to consider allowing anything in the 25, and we have a 50-foot no build that says you have a 10-to-1 mitigation requirement, I would say at a minimum, you're looking at 10-to-1 if you choose to agree that there needs to be the fill in the 25-foot. But for the fill that's in the wetlands, I see how that stays unless you're going to propose, Scott, that there's some additional, wetland mitigation that's being proposed.
yeah.
I have
Not
a
at
couple
this
of
time.
questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Judy.
If I interpret the map correctly, it looks like almost the entire horse pasture is actually wetlands. Is that right?
Correct.
Well, the entire
And-
horse pasture has hydric soil, a lot of hydric soil in it. Yeah.
Okay, so because I saw what you flagged as wetlands based on the hydric soils. So that's mostly. And when were the horses started to be boarded there, in terms of that being used as a pasture?
I think that goes, I could find out for sure, but I think that goes back 50 years or so. It's not, maybe even more.
So Brant, you're on the call here. Can you answer that question?
Mr. Johnson, are you there? I know last time we had problems with him too, and he said, when I talked to him afterwards, it was, he had trouble unmuting himself, but so maybe he's listening to us right now and trying to get on board. But
Yeah, it looks like he's on mute from what I can see.
yeah.
So, Mr. Johnson, if you go up to the top right of your photo box, you'll see 3 carrots there. You should just see actually a mute versus unmute ability. So if you go to the top right with the cursor, with your mouse of your photo box, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Mm. Yeah, I don't see any change yet.
Okay.
While we're waiting for Brant, when, speaking to your point, Delia, and I get your point entirely, are we, when you, was soil taken, and I don't know if I'm splitting hairs here, was soil taken out and stone brought in? And I know I'm parsing words here, but does that constitute fill?
Mhm.
In other words, was elevation changed?
That doesn't matter. So for
That's my
floodplain,
question. It
yeah,
doesn't
so for
matter.
floodplain, that would matter, but for wetlands, what has been done is that the wetland has been altered by the,
Alteration has to be removed or replicated elsewhere. Is that?
yeah, otherwise DEP is gonna, you know, I mean,
No, I'm just clarifying, just so I know what we're asking the man. Yeah.
right.
I see he's unmuted. Mr. Johnson, can you speak to us? No.
Yeah.
Hello?
He was able to do it. He was on one of the earlier calls. You are unmuted, Mr. Johnson. Maybe.
His mic may not work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like that's the case.
Yeah, I've had that problem with this computer sometimes.
Yeah.
You have to go
Okay,
and-
so I'll just say, if you want to work on your audio, if you go down to the bottom left of your screen, next to the video camera, there's a caret. And if you click on that caret, sorry, not the camera, but the microphone on the far left, and you can click on audio settings, and you should be able to increase the microphone and the speaker settings on your screen.
Or you could call in, I assume, too. For
Yep, you
as
could
well.
call in.
Yep.
Yep.
But I think from a wetlands function and value assessment, I mean, there's the interests of the act. Wetlands have certain characteristics that they provide. And in this particular case, you have a pasture that's been there for many years. It's not like you cut down a lot of trees. And there's all sorts of different types of wetlands categorically, the different functions and values. I mean, we could go through the exercise of saying, okay, what?
So I'm sorry, Scott, I'm just gonna stop you there, because I agree with what you're saying. Different wetlands have different functions and values, but the Wetlands Protection Act and the Wetlands Bylaw, it is black and white. I mean, that's not up for discussion. If you're going to have fill in wetlands, you have to find some other area on the site that you're going to replicate wetlands, period. I mean, that's just what the law says. So regardless of the value of the wetlands and what functions it provides, we don't have a way around that, given the regulations that we work with.
Okay, understand. Well, we can provide additional information on the exact size. We can estimate that and figure out a plan to remove it. And in the meantime, if you can make some progress with the farm plan, you know, that'll be good for the next thing down the line, to try to figure out a better way to use his pasture with standard farming practices that are acceptable under the
So that would be great. And so one thing that I wanted to just sort of ask the commission, I mean, there's this area of about 2,000 square feet of stone that was, you know, brought in 2016. And there was the additional area that was being plowed up in April, which is what alerted us to this at all. And this is the area of stone that we're sort of saying that's in the wetlands that needs to come out. I wonder, you know, I'm not sure exactly where the horses come into the pasture here. Is there a way to bring them in? And we don't have topo on this plan, so I don't know. And I know there's a slope here, but can the horses be brought in on the upland so that you don't need this stone in here in the first place?
Where's the barn?
The barn's back by the trees, I think, isn't it?
I think this is the, Scott, this is the barn here.
Further to your right, to the east, right near where that big tree is.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
that's what I
see it.
thought.
Under the tree.
Yeah.
Under the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Under the
Over
tree.
here?
You can see the little driveway to it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, it's right there.
You
And
can see the square
Delia,
off.
when we talked, we were talking about we discussed that same topic about where the gate is. The current gate is right near flag 14, just a little bit south of that. And it is fairly flat between there and you see this a rectangular box to the south too. That's a garden, just a fence around a garden there. And there is some flat space between the existing fence and that garden, so it is possible to just walk them, horses further up there where it's more high and dry. It is not steep right down to the edge of where the fence was, like I thought it was when we were talking.
Okay, so I think I would like to suggest that the applicant explain what the need is for that stone to be there in the first place before the commission even considers whether it makes sense to have that stone stay there and then look at mucking something else up to create additional wetlands somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think too, a plan that showed clearly the barn, the areas currently being used for pasture or that the horses use, because that's not clear. And I guess ultimately, what alternatives there might be for what areas the horses can use and what needs to be kept dry and what doesn't.
Right. And how long that's been used as a horse pasture.
Yes, I have that. My question. Okay. All right, yeah, we can look into all this and I'll talk to the owner afterwards, unless he can somehow chime in now. But yeah, I can follow up with him and then get back in touch with the answers to those questions to Delia specifically, and then I'll rely on her guidance as to, should we just go ahead and file a notice of intent with that on it or have another discussion?
Good. It would also be helpful, Scott, just to understand, there was some stone that was removed. What, I think you said 300 square feet.
Approximately was the footprint there, yeah.
So figuring out what that amount is there any remaining that needs to be identified? And if there is, that should be shown on a plan. And then also putting on a plan what that 2016 stone area looks like so that we have that.
Yeah.
And the gate, I think to me, it would be helpful to know what that gate is.
Yes. Yeah, we can put that on there. Okay.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any public comment on this? See any, Delia? I don't see any.
I don't.
Okay. So Scott, as you noted, you'll coordinate with Delia, and as you coordinate, we'll see you in a future meeting as determined once you get your plan set and kind of your course set in terms of the next steps.
Okay, understood.
Thanks very much.
Thank you all very much. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott.
Bye.
All right. Let's see. And Delia, am I correct? No extension request this evening? That was taken off the agenda?
We took that off because there's an area that Colleen identified that needs some additional evaluation.
Okay.
That has, changed slightly from the prior approval.
Okay. So I guess we're down to the COC for 20 Flint Road.
You got it.
Okay. Any comment there, Delia? Just a straight up?
That is
approval?
good to go.
Okay.
That was pretty old, isn't it?
Yes, that one is pretty old.
445.
Colleen, do you recall what the date on that was? I don't have that in front of me here. I don't know if Colleen.
I actually think it was I don't know if it was a 1997 one, but still pretty old, regardless.
I don't think 97's that far back, but.
Greg, we got a motion?
I make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 20 Flint Road, DEP file number 137-1445.
445.
Is that what I said?
Yeah, that's what you said.
No, you added a 1.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
445.
You got there.
It's a real old number.
137-445.
All right,
Thank you. Second?
second.
Thanks, Nick. Greg,
Aye.
Judy,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
and Nick,
Aye.
and I'm a yes as well. Okay, I think that wraps it up.
I make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right. Aye.
Sounds good. Aye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very
Bye.
much, guys. Have a nice evening.